Katie Sullivan wiped down another table as the dinner rush began at Stellar Harmony Restaurant. The space station Golden Nebula was always busy, but tonight felt different. Important aliens from across the galaxy had come for some big meeting. She could tell by their fancy clothes and the way they talked loudly about money and trade deals. The restaurant looked beautiful tonight. Soft lights made everything glow, and the big windows showed the stars outside. In one corner sat an old piano from Earth. Most aliens thought it was just a strange decoration. Katie knew better. She had played piano since she was 5 years old. She carried her tray carefully between the tables. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled the restaurant. The tall, thin Zephyrians with their long necks. The rock-like crystalline beings who glowed softly, and the Xerians who looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. Katie had learned to work around all of them during her 6 months on the station. At table 12, 3 Xerians were laughing very loudly. Their voices sounded like metal scraping together. Katie recognized the leader, Zex Thalen. He was one of the richest merchants in the galaxy. He was also one of the meanest when it came to humans. More wine, Zex Thalen clicked at Katie when she walked by. He did not say please. He never did. Katie nodded and went to get the wine. As she poured it, she heard him talking to the other Xerians. "Look at these humans," he said in his clicking voice. "They can only do simple work. Cleaning, serving food, carrying things. They are not smart like us." The other Xerians laughed. Katie's hands shook a little, but she kept pouring. She needed this job. Her little brother back on Earth was sick with a rare disease. The medicine cost more money than her family could make in 10 years. Every credit she earned here went straight to the doctors on Earth. "The humans think they are special," Zex Thalen continued. "But what can they do? Nothing important. They make noise with their instruments and call it art. They write words on paper and call it literature. Primitive entertainment for primitive minds." Katie finished pouring and started to walk away. Behind her, she heard more laughter. Her face felt hot with anger, but she could not say anything. She could not lose this job. In the far corner of the restaurant, a man sat alone at a small table. Vincent Cross was not like the other rich humans who sometimes came to the station. He dressed simply and ate quietly, but Katie knew who he was. Everyone did. He had built the biggest technology company on Earth. His quantum computers helped humans explore space and trade with aliens. Vincent watched the room carefully. He saw how the aliens treated the human workers. He saw how Katie's shoulders got tight when the Xerians laughed at her. He had been coming to this restaurant for weeks, and he was getting tired of watching this happen. The soft music playing in the background changed to a piece by Mozart. It was one of Katie's favorites. She hummed along quietly as she worked. "Turn off that human noise," Zex Thalen called out loudly. "It hurts my hearing organs." The restaurant manager, a nervous human named Pete Davis, quickly turned off the music. The room became quiet except for the sounds of eating and alien conversations. "Much better," Zex Thalen said. "Humans should stick to serving food. Leave music to species who understand it." Katie was cleaning glasses at the service station when she felt someone watching her. She looked up and saw Vincent Cross studying her. He had kind eyes, but they looked sad tonight. "Excuse me," Vincent said softly. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Katie looked around nervously. "I am working, sir." "If you need something, just for a minute," Vincent said. "During your break," Katie nodded. She had a 15-minute break coming soon. She could spare a few minutes to talk to Vincent Cross. Maybe he wanted to complain about the service. Rich people did that sometimes. When her break time, Katie walked over to Vincent's table. He was looking at the old piano in the corner. "Do you play?" he asked. Katie was surprised by the question. "I used to," she said carefully. "A long time ago." "What kind of music?" Katie did not know why he was asking. but something in his voice made her want to answer. Classical mostly, some jazz. I wrote some songs too, but that was before. She stopped talking. She did not want to tell him about her family's problems. Vincent nodded like he understood. I heard what that Zarian said about human music. About humans in general. Katie's face got red again. He says things like that every night. Most of them do. Does it bother you? Of course it bothers me, Katie said quietly. But what can I do? I need this job. My family needs the money. Vincent was quiet for a moment. He looked around the restaurant at all the alien customers. Then he looked back at Katie. What if I told you there was a way to show them they are wrong about humans? He said, what if there was a way to prove that humans can do amazing things? Katie laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. Like what? Serve their food faster? Like making music that would change the way they think about us forever. Katie stared at him. She did not understand what he meant. But something in his eyes made her heart beat faster. Something that looked like hope. Katie's break was almost over when Vincent noticed something sticking out of her uniform pocket. It looked like old paper with lines and dots drawn on it. Is that sheet music? Vincent asked. Katie quickly pushed the papers deeper into her pocket. Her face turned red. It is nothing important. May I see it? Vincent asked gently. Katie looked around the restaurant. No one was watching them. She slowly pulled out the papers. They were worn and folded many times. Vincent could see they were covered with musical notes written in pencil. Vincent looked at the first page. His eyes went wide. This is Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. This is very difficult music. I know, Katie said quietly. Vincent flipped through more pages. Chopin's Ballade. Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody. He looked up at Katie with surprise. These are some of the hardest piano pieces ever written. Katie took the papers back. I told you I used to play. Used to? Vincent asked. When did you stop? Katie was quiet for a long moment. 3 years ago. My brother got sick. The doctor said he needed special treatment. Very expensive treatment. My parents sold everything. But it was not enough. I had to leave music school and get a job. What school? Juilliard, Katie said so quietly Vincent could barely hear her. Vincent's mouth opened in shock. Juilliard was the best music school on earth. Only the most talented students got accepted. You were at Juilliard? Katie nodded. I got a scholarship. When I was 16, I thought I would be a concert pianist. But life had other plans. Vincent looked at the old piano in the corner of the restaurant. Then he looked back at Katie. An idea was forming in his mind. A crazy idea, but maybe it could work. Katie, he said slowly, how would you like to help me teach these aliens a lesson about humans? Before Katie could answer, a loud voice cut through the restaurant noise. It was Zex Thalen again. The food here is good, the Zarian was saying to his friends, but the service is slow. These humans are not very smart. They can only do simple tasks. Other aliens at nearby tables started listening. A few of them nodded in agreement. Humans are good for basic work, said a tall Zephyrian, but they cannot create anything beautiful. They cannot make real art. Their music is just noise. Added a crystalline being. They hit things and make sounds. They call it music, but it has no meaning. More aliens joined the conversation. Soon half the restaurant was talking about how humans were only good for serving food and cleaning floors. Vincent stood up. He walked over to Zex Thalen's table. Katie followed him, worried about what he might do. Excuse me, Vincent said in a loud voice. I could not help but hear your conversation about humans. Zex Thalen looked up at Vincent. His insect eyes glittered. Ah, another human. Do you have something to say? I do, Vincent said. I think you are wrong about humans. We can create beautiful things. We can make art that moves people. We can make music that touches the soul. Zexthalin laughed. His clicking laughter sounded like broken glass. Prove it, he said. What do you mean? Vincent asked. Zexthalin stood up. He was much taller than Vincent. I mean, prove it. Show us this beautiful human art. Play us this moving human music. The restaurant was getting quiet. Other aliens were turning to watch. Katie felt her heart beating fast. If you are so confident, Zexthalin continued, let us make a wager. What kind of wager? Vincent asked. Zexthalin smiled. It was not a nice smile. Find any human in this restaurant. Let them play that old piano. If they can make music that impresses the aliens here, I will do 3 things. First, I will apologize publicly for what I said about humans. Second, I will donate 1 million galactic credits to human charities. Third, I will recommend humans for more important jobs in the Galactic Trade Federation. The aliens in the restaurant started talking excitedly. This was better than their boring dinner meeting. And if the human fails, Vincent asked, then you will withdraw your company from 3 major trade deals. The quantum computer contracts, the space navigation systems, and the new colony supply agreements. Katie gasped. Those deals were worth billions of credits. They employed thousands of humans. If Vincent lost those contracts, many people would lose their jobs. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Katie could see him thinking hard. Finally he spoke. I accept your wager. The restaurant erupted in noise. Aliens were talking loudly in many different languages. Some were taking bets on what would happen. Others were calling their friends to come watch. Zexthalin looked around the restaurant. So which human will embarrass themselves for us tonight? Vincent turned to Katie. She was shaking her head. No, she whispered. I cannot. I have not played in years. My hands are not ready. What if I mess up? What if I ruin everything? Katie, Vincent said quietly, I have heard you humming. I have seen your sheet music. You have talent that these aliens cannot imagine. But the risk, Katie said. If I fail, you lose everything. Thousands of people lose their jobs. If you succeed, Vincent said, you change how the galaxy sees humans forever. Katie looked at the piano. It was old, but well maintained. The black and white keys seemed to shine in the restaurant lights. She thought about her brother back on Earth. She thought about all the humans working on the space station, who had to listen to aliens insult them every day. She thought about her dreams of being a concert pianist. Dreams she had given up 3 years ago. I need a few minutes to warm up, Katie said. Vincent smiled. Take all the time you need. Katie walked toward the piano. Behind her, she could hear the aliens making more bets. Some were laughing. Some were talking about how this would be funny to watch. She sat down at the piano bench and lifted the lid. The keys were cool under her fingers. She had not touched a piano in 6 months. Before that, she had only played a few times a year, but as she placed her hands on the keys, something magical happened. The music was still there, waiting inside her. It had never really gone away. Katie took a deep breath and began to play. Katie's hands shook as she touched the piano keys. The restaurant had become completely quiet. She could feel dozens of alien eyes watching her. Some looked curious. Others looked like they were waiting for her to fail. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought about her music teacher from when she was a child. When you are nervous, the teacher had said, start with something that makes you feel safe. Let the music carry you. Katie began with a soft, gentle piece. It was Clair de Lune by Debussy. The notes flowed like water under her fingers. It was a piece she had played hundreds of times. Even after 3 years, her fingers remembered every note. The melody filled the restaurant like moonlight. It was beautiful and peaceful. Katie felt her nerves starting to calm down. The piano sounded good. Her hands were working fine, but when she looked up, she saw the alien faces around her. They were not impressed. A few Xerians were talking quietly to each other. Some Zephyrians looked bored. The crystalline beings were not even glowing, which meant they felt nothing. "Pretty," said one alien loudly enough for others to hear. But simple, like a child's lullaby. Katie felt her heart sink. She had chosen the wrong piece to start with. Claire de Lune was beautiful, but it was too soft, too gentle. These aliens wanted to see something that would shock them. They wanted proof that humans could do more than just make pleasant sounds. As the piece ended, there was polite clapping. But Katie could hear the whispers. "Is that all?" someone asked. "I expected more," said another voice. Zex Thalen was smiling. His mean smile. "A lovely little tune," he said in his clicking voice. "Very relaxing, good for helping babies sleep." The other Xerians laughed. Katie felt her face getting hot with embarrassment, but then she saw Vincent in the crowd. He was not laughing. He was looking at her with encouraging eyes. He nodded slightly, as if to say, "Keep going." Katie put her hands back on the keys. This time she would play something harder. Something that would show these aliens what human music could really do. She began Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. This was a piece that had taken her 2 years to learn perfectly. It started quietly, almost like a whisper. But then it grew stronger and more complex. The notes began to dance under Katie's fingers. Her left hand played deep, rich bass notes, while her right hand played a melody that seemed to fly above them. The music told a story without words. It spoke of love and loss, of hope and sadness, of dreams that seemed impossible. As the piece continued, Katie felt herself getting lost in the music. Her fingers moved faster and faster across the keys. The melody became more complicated. She played passages that required both hands to move in completely different rhythms at the same time. The whispers in the restaurant started to fade. More aliens were paying attention now. They could hear that this was not simple music. This required real skill. Katie reached the middle section of the piece, where Chopin had written some of the most difficult piano music ever created. Her hands flew across the keys so fast they seemed to blur. The music filled every corner of the restaurant with sound. A few aliens leaned forward in their seats. Even some of the Xerians stopped talking. They were beginning to realize that what they were hearing was not just noise. It was art, but Katie could see it was still not enough. The aliens were impressed by her skill, but they were not moved. They watched her like they were watching a machine doing a complicated task. They saw the difficulty, but they did not feel the emotion. Katie knew she needed to do something different. Something that would not just show her technical ability, but would actually touch their hearts. If aliens had hearts. As the Chopin piece built toward its climax, Katie made a decision. She would not just play the notes as they were written. She would add something of her own. Something personal. She began to change the melody slightly. Instead of playing exactly what Chopin had written, she added small variations. Little changes that made the music sound more like it was coming from her own heart rather than from a page. The aliens noticed the change. Their heads tilted slightly, like they were trying to understand what was happening. The music was still recognizably Chopin, but it was also something new. Something that had never been heard before. Katie closed her eyes and let her feelings flow through her fingers. She thought about her brother lying in a hospital bed on Earth. She thought about her parents, working extra jobs to pay for medicine. She thought about her own dreams of being a concert pianist, dreams she had given up to help her family. All of these feelings went into the music. The notes became more than just sounds. They became a story of sacrifice and love and hope. When she opened her eyes, she saw that some of the aliens were sitting very still. A few of the crystalline beings had started to glow softly. This meant they were feeling something. The music was reaching them, but Katie knew this was still not enough. She could see Zex Thalen watching her with his cold insect eyes. He was waiting for her to finish so he could dismiss her performance as technically adequate, but emotionally empty. As the Chopin piece reached its final section, Katie realized what she needed to do. She needed to stop playing music that was written by dead humans from Earth's past. She needed to play something that showed what humans could create right now. Right here in this moment, she needed to play her own music. The Chopin piece ended with a flourish of notes. There was more applause this time, and it sounded more genuine, but Katie did not stop playing. Instead, she began to transition into something new. Something that no one in the restaurant had ever heard before. She began to play a piece she had written herself years ago when she was still a student. But as she played it, she realized she could make it better. She could make it speak to these alien listeners in a way that no human music had ever done before. The real performance was just beginning. Katie's fingers moved into her own composition. The melody was different from anything the aliens had heard before. It was not just human music. It was something new. During her months working on the space station, Katie had listened carefully to the sounds that different alien species made. She had noticed that Xerians clicked in certain patterns when they were happy. Zephyrians hummed deep notes when they were thinking. Crystalline beings made soft chiming sounds when they agreed with something. Katie had studied these sounds like a scientist. She had written them down and tried to understand their patterns. Then she had created a piece of music that combined human piano music with these alien sound patterns. As she played, something amazing began to happen. The melody she played on the piano matched the natural rhythms that Xerians used when they were excited. Without thinking about it, Zex Thalen began to click softly along with the music. His clicking sounds fit perfectly with Katie's piano notes. At first, Zex Thalen did not realize what he was doing. The clicking was automatic, like breathing. But then he noticed, and his eyes went wide with surprise. He tried to stop clicking, but the music was too strong. It made him want to make sounds. Other Xerians at his table began clicking too. Soon all the Xerians in the restaurant were making their happy clicking sounds in rhythm with Katie's piano. But that was just the beginning. Katie shifted her melody to match the deep humming sounds that Sophians made. The tall, thin aliens began to hum without realizing it. Their throat sacs pulsed in time with the music. The humming added a rich, deep layer of sound underneath Katie's piano. The crystalline beings were next. Katie played notes that matched their natural chiming frequencies. The rock-like aliens began to glow brighter and brighter. Their bodies made soft ringing sounds, like crystal glasses being tapped with a spoon. Katie could hardly believe what was happening. The whole restaurant was becoming an orchestra. Each alien species was adding their own natural sounds to her piano music. But they were not doing it on purpose. The music was pulling the sounds out of them. She had discovered something that no human had ever known before. All intelligent species had music inside them. They just expressed it in different ways. Katie played louder and more confidently. She wove all the alien sounds together with her piano, creating harmonies that no single species could make alone. The clicking of the Xerians became percussion. The humming of the Zephyrians became bass notes. The chiming of the crystalline beings became high, sweet melodies. Other alien species in the restaurant began adding their own sounds. The Aquarians made bubbling noises that sounded like water flowing over rocks. The metallic beings created ringing tones by tapping their fingers together. Even the normally silent shadow people began making whisper-soft whooshing sounds. The restaurant filled with music unlike anything anyone had ever heard. It was not human music or alien music. It was something completely new. Something that could only exist when different species worked together. Katie felt tears running down her face as she played. This was what music was supposed to be. Not one species showing off to others, but all species creating beauty together. She looked out at the alien faces around her. They were not bored anymore. They were not dismissive. They were amazed. Some looked confused, like they could not understand what was happening to them. Others looked happy in ways that Katie had never seen before. Even the normally cold and mean Zexthalen looked different. His clicking had become more complex and beautiful. He was not just making noise anymore. He was making music. Katie realized she could do even more. She had been holding back, playing it safe. But now she felt brave enough to try something she had only dreamed about. She began to use the space station's artificial gravity system. She had learned that small changes in gravity could affect how sound traveled. By making tiny adjustments with controls built into the piano bench, she could make notes seem to come from different places in the room. As she played, some notes seemed to float in the air above the aliens' heads. Other notes seemed to come from the floor or the walls. It was like the entire restaurant had become a giant musical instrument. The aliens looked around in wonder. They could hear music coming from everywhere at once. Some notes seemed close enough to touch. Others seemed to come from far away, like echoes from another world. Katie played a passage that required her to hit keys on both ends of the piano at the same time. But with the gravity adjustments, it sounded like 10 different pianos playing at once. The music became three-dimensional, wrapping around the listeners like a warm blanket. A crystalline being near the front began to cry. Tears that looked like liquid diamonds ran down his rocky face. Katie had never seen a crystalline cry before. She did not even know they could cry. A group of Zephyrians in the back were swaying together like trees in a gentle wind. Their humming had become so beautiful it made Katie's heart ache. Even the Zerians had stopped looking mean. They were clicking in patterns so complex and lovely that it sounded like 1,000 tiny bells ringing in perfect harmony. Katie knew she was reaching the end of her composition. She had saved the most difficult part for last. This section would require her to play with both hands at maximum speed while controlling the gravity systems and incorporating all the alien sounds into one final perfect moment. She took a deep breath and prepared for the finale. This would be the moment that would change everything. The moment that would show the galaxy what humans could really do. The moment that would make the whole room gasp in amazement. Katie prepared for the final section of her composition. This was the part she had never tried before in front of an audience. It was dangerous and difficult, but she knew it was the only way to truly amaze these aliens. She placed her hands on the piano keys and began the most complex passage she had ever attempted. Her fingers moved so fast they became a blur. She was playing 3 different melodies at the same time, one with her right hand, one with her left hand, and one using the gravity controls. The gravity system made some piano strings vibrate without being touched. This created ghost notes that seemed to float in the air. It sounded like invisible hands were playing parts of the piano that Katie could not reach. The aliens watched in confusion and wonder. How could one human make so many different sounds at once? It seemed impossible, but Katie was not finished. She had been practicing something even more amazing during her breaks over the past few months. She had learned to use the artificial gravity field around the piano to create notes that should not exist. As she played, she made tiny changes to the gravity field. This caused the piano strings to vibrate in new ways. Some strings began to produce 2 notes at the same time. Others created harmonics that rang out like bells. The effect was stunning. The piano sounded like it was playing itself. Notes filled the air that no human hands were creating. It was as if the music had come alive and was dancing around the room. The aliens gasped, all of them. At the same time, Zexthalen's mouth fell open. His clicking stopped completely. He stared at Katie with his insect eyes wide with shock. The crystalline beings were glowing so brightly they lit up the entire restaurant. Their chiming sounds had become a beautiful chorus that made the air itself seem to sing. The Zephyrians were humming so deeply that the floor vibrated under everyone's feet. Their long necks were stretched up toward the ceiling as if they were reaching for the stars. Even the quiet shadow people were visible now, their whisper sounds creating a gentle wind that moved through the room like a living thing. Katie played the final passage of her composition. Every alien sound, every gravity-created note, every piano melody came together in one perfect moment. It was like hearing the music of the entire universe condensed into a single beautiful song. When the last note faded away, the restaurant was completely silent. For a long moment, nobody moved, nobody spoke. They were all still feeling the music in their hearts. Then something unprecedented happened. Every alien in the restaurant began to applaud. Not the polite clapping they had done before, but real, enthusiastic applause. The Xerians clipped their approval. The crystalline beings chimed like church bells. The Zephyrians hummed their joy. It was the first time in galactic history that so many different species had shown appreciation for human art. Katie sat at the piano, tears streaming down her face. She could hardly believe what had just happened. She had not just played music. She had created something that brought different worlds together. Zex Thalon walked slowly toward the piano. His legs were shaking. When he reached Katie, he did something that shocked everyone in the room. He bowed his head to her. "I was wrong," he said in his clicking voice. "I was completely wrong about humans. What you just did. I have lived for 300 years. I have heard music from 47 different worlds, but I have never heard anything like this." He turned to face the room full of aliens. "I made a wager tonight. I lost that wager completely, but I am happy to lose it." Zex Thalon's voice got louder so everyone could hear. "I formally apologize to all humans for my ignorant words. You are not primitive. You are not simple. You are creators of beauty that we never imagined possible." The other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. Many of them were still glowing or humming or chiming softly. "Furthermore," Zex Thalon continued, "I will donate 1 million galactic credits to human charities as I promised. And I will personally recommend that the Galactic Trade Federation offer humans more important positions. You deserve to be our partners, not our servants." Vincent Cross walked over to Katie and helped her stand up from the piano bench. "That was incredible," he said with a huge smile. "I knew you were talented, but this changes everything." Katie wiped the tears from her eyes. "I cannot believe it worked," she said. "I was so scared I would mess up." "You did not mess up," said a new voice. It was Captain Roy Bennett, the station security chief. He had been watching from the back of the room. "You just made history. This is the first time I have seen aliens and humans truly connect through art." More aliens approached Katie. They wanted to know how she had learned to combine their natural sounds with human music. They wanted to understand the gravity technique she had used. They wanted to learn from her. A crystalline being named Hexstar stepped forward. "Would you be willing to teach others this technique?" he asked. "My people would be honored to learn from you." "Mine too," said a Zephyrian elder. "We could create a school here on the station. A place where all species could study music together." Katie looked at Vincent. He nodded encouragingly. "I would love to teach," Katie said. "But I need to help. My family first. My brother is sick and needs medicine." "The medical treatment is handled," Vincent said. "I am taking care of all your family's expenses. Consider it an investment in human-alien relations." Katie started crying again, but these were tears of joy. "You mean?" "I mean you are free to follow your dreams," Vincent said. "And maybe, along the way, you can help build bridges between our worlds." 3 months later, Katie stood in front of her first class at the new Interspecies Music Academy. The class had students from 12 different worlds. Some had hands like hers. Others had tentacles or claws or crystal formations, but they all had one thing in common. They all wanted to learn how to make beautiful music together. As Katie began her first lesson, she thought about that night in the restaurant. She had been so scared, so sure she would fail. But instead, she had discovered something wonderful. Music really was a universal language. It just needed someone brave enough to help different species learn to speak it together. And sometimes, the most beautiful things happened when people were willing to take risks to prove that understanding was possible, even across the vastness of space.